Hello, it's Andy. Today I'm at Minions, to be precise, the Hurlers. It's an ancient stone circle, dated back to the Bronze Age, possibly further back, and I'm going to take you up and have a look. You can just see it in the distance, just left of Stows Hill, which has got the cheese ring sitting on top in the distance. It's actually 2 or 3 stone circles. Apparently legend says it is unlucky to try and count all the stones. From the car park it is reasonably easy to find. There's multiple little tracks leading up to it, and it's no more than about 200 yards from the car park. And on a reasonable day, the going underfoot is quite it's quite good for somebody of an able-bodied walking ability. To the right of the stones is a engine house from the times when mining was the main industry up here. The Phoenix Mine Company was the major player, and this whole ground underneath where I'm standing is nothing but mine shafts and caverns where they mined out the ores. So here is the Hurlers themselves. These stone circles are said to be the men that were playing the ancient Cornish game of hurling, and they were turned to stone after they refused to stop playing that ancient game of hurling when they were asked to by St. Clear. He went away and they carried on playing, and when he came back he just turned them into stone for refusing to stop, and this was on the Sabbath. Just below that engine house, shall we say, if you did a direct line, there's 2 stones which are called the Pipers. Now they themselves are the remnants, or the, as legend says, the 2 men who were playing the Cornish pipes that refused to stop also on the Sabbath, and St. Clear turned them into, shall we say, stones for all eternity. So they had the same fate as the Hurlers themselves. This angle, and looking back up through, you can see the stones really do pose a structure which you can easy identify that this had a, shall we say, a purpose of religious or ceremonial significance. People have said also it's to do with astrological alignments, but who really knows? But you do get a real sense of awe and power when you're stood around these stones. These 2 stones are the Pipers, and yes, they did take the Sabbath very should we say seriously, and these 2 guys paid the price for playing their pipes. Bringing you around to where the stones are, it looks pretty ominous with all those dark clouds, but we're going to make our move back over this rise in the hill over towards the cheese ring itself. It doesn't get much more Cornish than that, a ancient stone circle with a engine house from the mining period stood behind it. Yeah, that really symbolises Cornwall. Leaving the stone circles and Minions itself, which sits at just over 900 feet above sea level, we will be taking the route across this little bit of open moorland to Stows Hill and the cheese ring formation on top. That sits at just over 1200 feet above sea level. There is excellent views from both here and on top of that hill of the surrounding Cornish landscape, and even going so far into, well, a vast portion of Devon as well. This is moorland, so if you wear the right clothes and pick a suitable day to your level of walking, you should be okay. As with everything, always go walking on the moors in conditions you're comfortable with. But this is not a relatively difficult walk. It just requires the common sense allocated to the conditions that you have at hand. In the very distance, over in this direction here, in the very far distance, you can just see the Hill of Swallows Brown Willie. I summited that not long ago in a video, and that was in very, very difficult conditions, unlike today. Not too far from here, they did find a gold cup in what is called the Rillerton Burrow find. It's a very well-known and documented piece of archaeological evidence that was found for that particular time period it represents. Indeed, you know, this whole area we're standing on has evidence of every time period that man has been here, and you can't escape that. You just have that sense and feeling of it when you're up here, particularly when there isn't too many other people up walking as well. So the Cheese Ring Formation sits on top of Stoves Hill, which has been extensively quarried on one side, as you can see. We will get closer and take a look at that, and you'll get the full picture of what's actually happened to this piece of landscape. As I follow this track to make my way up to, shall we say, where I can start to climb on top of the hill, you've got a very direct, in-your-face reminder that this landscape has been changed and altered by man. And you can clearly see this was a channel for something at some point. Could it have been a small railway, or could it have been a watercourse? I'm not too sure on that. I'd have to investigate on that. But there is a curious little feature that we're going to go and see just on the very corner of that where it starts to turn into the hill. We're now walking up to what is known as Daniel Gum's Cave. And there's quite a fascinating and curious story behind this. Yeah, so this self-styled cave, shall I say, actually wasn't in this location. It was further inside the quarry boundaries, but it was removed to save it for posterity and allow it to, shall we say, survive the generations, as testament to Daniel Gum himself. Now, he was kind of like a hermit, but it wasn't in the traditional sense as what we call it. He was born in Lincolnhorn, my parish, and indeed he's got some of his work, because he was a stonemason and a stone cutter. There's gravestones within the local church down there which he did work and manufacture himself. But he was a very educated man, and he could do all sorts of, shall we say, academic work, which led him to also have some employment by people who sought after his, shall we say, academic intelligence. But he made himself a cave which he lived in to avoid financial taxation or any costs, basically trying to look for the lowest cost of living possible. I'm not sure what his wife at the time and kids thought about having to live in a cave, but yes, this was his life, and he could quite often be found on a clear night staring into the heavens, because he was an avid stargazer. So he had a lot of, shall we say, notoriety, and he became in himself a bit of an attraction and curiosity. But I believe he was married a couple times, and he had a sad life where he was surrounded by death in that respect. But yeah, his last wife and kids, I believe, did live with him in this cave for a while. And I'm sure it was a thoroughly unpleasant experience if you've ever been anywhere near these moors on a winter's day. And indeed, you're probably going to get wind noise on this video, so you can get a true understanding of what it must have been like to live in that there. So yeah, that's Daniel Gum's Cave. You can quite clearly see the evidence of man here and how much material's been removed from this side of the hill. Yes, indeed, this stone was quarried and taken to all parts of the UK. Some of it even ended up in the Tower Bridge of London. It really was from 1845 to 1930, or the 1930s, it had its span of quarrying, but it eventually got stopped by a local campaign group to save the, shall we say, the feature of the cheese rings on top, which people were concerned would actually topple due to the mining work that, and, well, shall we say, quarrying that was happening here at the time. So yeah, activists are nothing really new. Like I said, they actually managed to stop this quarrying to save that feature on top. I'm now making my way up a track, and yeah, you would need sensible footwear, and on a day like today it's perfectly okay. But if it was, shall we say, extremely wet underfoot, you will have boulders to negotiate and stones, so just bear that in mind. You can see evidence of the quarrying, where you can see drill bits have gone into the granite all the way along, and the stones are littered with that, shall we say, evidence of quarrying. You've now got to pick your way through this grass and boulders to get to the top, and as I've just said, sensible footwear, and just take your time so you don't twist an ankle. This formation was caused obviously by erosion by water and wind, and the softer rocks being eroded away to leave the harder granite slabs on top of each other. But local legend says there was a saint that came to Cornwall, wanted to convert the local giants to Christianity. Well, they challenged him to a contest, stone throwing contest, and if they lost they would convert. Well, as it turns out, the giants got to their 13th stone, missed when they threw it, it didn't stack on top, but the saint threw his 13th stone and it landed on top. So he obviously won. The giants had to convert to Christianity. It does say in the legend they did that begrudgingly though. Right, I'm on top the hill and I'm looking down over into the quarry. It is so evident how much material has been removed. It is actually quite shocking when you get up here and you see how much is gone and what man can actually do to the environment. I don't think that needs any explanation actually. If you've got a dirty grey cliff face just over that, shall we say, grass bank bit there, sheer drop, I don't think you really need to understand what that means. But if anybody's any doubt, you really do not want to cross there. It could spoil your day. So safety first. Don't even attempt going over if you've got signs saying don't climb over. Most people would go back the other way, the way they came, but I'm going to follow this little track, and it is littered with small boulders and stones. You can quite easily see this now becomes a little bit more, shall we say, you really want to be fleet of foot. I would suggest going back the other way if you're not in that frame of mind or able to be too mobile. Go back the other way. This really is reserved for people with a little bit more mobility. Yeah, you can quite easily see what I'm talking about now. I'm now picking my way, finding little tracks. Looking over into the distance, we have Sharp Tor and Notter Tor, which I call the baby Tor. And you got a little village nestled in between the two of Henwood. Right then, I've got to make my way down here. So I'll just turn off and make my way down here safely. Yeah, it is rather slippery coming down here. The ground has had some rain on it. It's not sodden, it's just slippery, where there's as I bring you around, you can see what I'm talking about. You've got a fair old gradient to come down over wet rocky ground. So yeah, probably better to go back the other way. And I'm now faced with this. So you do want to be a little bit fleet of foot. And there's a big drop there on this one here. I should imagine the sheep, this is where a hiking stick comes in good use. You can lodge it and use it to get down. I should imagine the local sheep have no difficulty getting up and down here. In fact, this is probably their main thoroughfare up to the top. Right then, I'm coming down to what I know is the entrance to the quarry. I've just come down that ramp into the quarry, and you can clearly see the rock face that they've worked, and it really is high. And this brings you round the whole circumference of the actual quarry, and it really is awe-inspiring to see this amount of rock taken. And you can quite clearly see this isn't a place that you really want to be messing about with, so you really need to take care. I'm now exiting the actual quarry through the entrance into it, and yeah, I'm sure there would have been like a little railway system that would have come in here. I do know there were small gauge railways operating up here at the time, through reading books and that. So yes, I've got no doubt there would have been some mechanical means to on this particular trackway here. As if by magic, look what's just popped up. It looks like a railway or cart or tramway or some shall we say item that a kind of wheeled implement would have been on. It's probably one of the small gauge railways, I would have thought, or at least very much like the old mine carts, I would suspect. Yeah, there's another piece here, and like I say, it does look like trackway, and it ends here. I think there's another piece there, so what's actually going on there I don't know, but yeah, there was definitely something of that nature we were just talking about happening here. This path has a lot of water running out of it, so I take it that in heavy rain you would obviously need a really good pair of walking boots to, shall we say, keep your feet dry along this trackway. In the distance over there, you can just see the old Phoenix Mine Workings engine house there, and that one in itself is quite well preserved, and it's definitely worth a look. I shall probably pop over there one day and do a little video. Something that you have to be aware of on Cornish moorland, particularly here in Minions, and indeed all over the moors actually, you don't need no, shall we say, explanation. Danger mine shaft does actually mean stay away. Do not cross this line and do not go in. It isn't a joke, and I will take you and I will show you why. If you're under any illusion it's just health and safety gone mad, I will show you why. And be under no illusion, do not cross any fence line that says mine shaft. It may look like solid ground, the vegetation or the ground could just give in underneath you, or you could just go through a load of brambles and disappear 100 feet to your death. There's evidence of the old mine workings everywhere, and yeah, it's hard to escape the industrial past of this landscape. Right, yet again, another sign saying danger mine shaft. Just take a quick second and have a look there and see what you think could possibly be the problem or something's wrong. I will just pan the camera around and you can probably start to see what's happened. And yes, those fence posts are in mid-air, suspended by the barbed wire fence. There is no ground beneath them. There was ground, but there no longer is. That whole section of ground has collapsed into the chasm of the mine shaft below. There's nothing keeping that up other than the wire. They look like they're floating, those fence posts. There is literally nothing underneath them. There you go. You can see slightly clearer there now. Nothing holding them up. They're floating in mid-air, those fence posts. Floating in mid-air. This is another example. It just looks like you could pop over this barbed wire fence and it's just a little ditch. Indeed, there's a little bit of a tree growing there, but if you was to, all that is just overgrowth clinging to the side of the mine shaft wall as it goes down. There is basically a opening which would take you to your death. Do not enter these areas at all. I can't stress enough. Stay out of these wired areas if they're marked mine shaft. It's really not just to stop people having an adventure, it's to actually save your life. Do not cross these lines. From up here you got views all the way across to Plymouth Sound, Dartmoor, Kit Hill, swinging round. You've got Oakhampton side of Dartmoor, then well, basically heading into North Cornwall facing this way and over towards the North Cornish coast. Fantastic views, and on a clear day it is exceptional. Yeah, I'm just going to continue walking along the track I'm on. I'm going to leave this bit here with these mine shafts and continue back up this grass track, make my way to the gravel track, and I'm going to walk round to the car park on the other side of the village. If I follow this track, it will take me down to the road where I can head over to the old Phoenix Mines work. I'm going to take this track back to the village of Minions and then get back to the car park where my car's parked. Well, as you can see, it's not the most perfect of days. There's a lot of wind. The temperature's not too bad, and the ground underfoot is not sodden. There's just a few patches that are slippery because they're damp. This walk is possibly 3 miles, maybe a tad under. If we say 3, would be safe. So it's nothing too taxing. There will be wind noise all the way through this video, so that should give you an indication that we are on high ground. So if you're coming up here and the weather is poor, as I've already mentioned, you can expect unfavourable wind conditions. Rain could be coming sideways, and underfoot it would be extremely boggy and be like a mire. So all that said and done, a pleasant little walk on a day like today if you've got no time constraints, and I always seem to be rushing to get things done, but if you've got all the time in the world, it's a lovely little walk, and I recommend coming here for a little walk. But like I say, if the weather's poor and you're not confident, and you know you don't have decent equipment as in waterproof boots and the like, possibly one to give a miss to a better day. But I thoroughly recommend it, and I'm going to sign out here because I'm going to get in the car and get home and do what I got to do. So cheers, Andy.